As we discussed before, there are a number of data types in Python that are all sequences. Strings are sequences of characters and are immutable. Lists are sequences of elements of any type and are mutable. A third data type that's a sequence and also closely related to lists is the tuple. Tuples are sequences of elements of any type that are immutable. We write tuples in parentheses instead of square brackets. You might be wondering, why do we even need another sequence type? Aren't lists great? To answer this, yes, lists are great. Lists can hold any number of elements and we can add, remove, and modify their contents as much as we want. But there are cases when we want to make sure an element in a certain position or index refers to one specific thing and won't change. In these situations, lists won't help us. In our example, we have a tuple that represents someone's full name. The first element of the tuple is the first name. The second element is the middle name, and the third element is the last name. If we add another element somewhere in there, what would that element represent? It would just be confusing and our code wouldn't know what to do with it, and that's why modifying isn't allowed. In other words, when using tuples, the position of the elements inside the tuple have meaning. Tuples are used for lots of different things in Python. One common example is the return value of functions. When a function returns more than one value, it's actually returning a tuple. For example, the function to convert seconds to hours, minutes, and seconds returns 3 values. In other words, it returns a tuple of 3 elements. Let's give it a try. Please check this code to get better understanding of the concept. If required, you may pause the video and go through the code mentioned here. We see the result is a tuple. What if we print it? We see that it has the 3 elements we expect it to have. Remember, since this is a tuple, the order matters. The first element represents the hours, the second one represents the minutes, and the third represents the seconds. One interesting thing we can do with tuples is unpack them. This means that we can turn a tuple of 3 elements into 3 separate variables. Because the order won't change, we know what those variables are present, like this. So now we've split the tuple into 3 separate values. We've seen before that we can also do this directly when calling the function without the intermediate result variable. In Python, it's really common to use tuples to represent data that has more than one value and that needs to be kept together. For example, you could use a tuple to have a file name and its size, or you could store the name and email address of a person, or a date and time and the general health of the system at any point in time. You can see how these different data types could help you automate some of your IT work. Knowing when to use tuples and when to use lists can seem a little confusing at first, but don't worry, it'll get clearer as we tackle more examples in the upcoming videos. If this video helped you out in any way, please make sure to like and subscribe for more videos. Also, click on the screen right now to watch another video, just like this one with some tips and tricks to help you level up. If you have any questions or suggestions, then you may ask in the comments section below. I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.